Good evening, everyone, and welcome to the continuation of the Municipal Council Committee of the Whole meeting of Wednesday, October 2nd, 2019. Everybody, please raise for the Pledge of Allegiance.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Roll call, please.
Councilmember Coyle. Councilmember Deal.
Here.
Councilmember Gomez.
Here.
Councilmember Joshi.
Present.
Councilmember Lombardi.
Here.
Councilmember Patel. Councilmember Sandelsky.
Here.
Adequate notice, please.
Adequate notice of the meeting as required by the Open Public Meeting Act of 1975 has been provided by a special notice was published in the Home News Tribune on September 27th, 2019, and posted in the Lobby Municipal Complex on that same date.
Good evening, everyone, and welcome to the continuation of the Committee of the Whole. I will now turn it over to Councilman Lombardi for some instructions.
Thank you, Council President. As a recap for tonight, we subpoenaed 3 witnesses to appear tonight. The first was Mr. Shi, who is here, Mr. Ahmad, who has indicated that he is unavailable tonight, but has given us some dates certain that he is available in November. So I believe what we have to do is see if the committee is available on any of those dates so we can schedule the next meeting. And the third person was Mr. Suarez, who has hired an attorney and has sent us a letter today indicating that his client is unable to attend tonight. So we'll have to discuss that in further detail as well. In terms of tonight's meeting, again, we have Mr. Shi here, who is, I guess, ready, willing, and able to testify. The first thing I'm going to do is just give some basic instructions as to how this hearing should proceed tonight. You're here today in response to a subpoena that was served upon you on or about September 3rd, 2019. The committee will ask you questions. There's a court reporter present, and our questions and your answers to those questions will be taken down by the court reporter. At some point in time, the court reporter will prepare a booklet called a transcript, and that transcript will have an exact verbatim record of all of the questions by all the committee members and your answers to those questions. So it's important that you approach this hearing with the same degree of seriousness as you would if you were in a courtroom. Your answers are considered sworn testimony. That being said, if you don't hear or understand the question, let us know and we will repeat or rephrase the question until you're satisfied that you both heard and understood the question. No one wants you to start to answer if you're not sure what the question was. However, if you do answer the question, it will be assumed by the committee that you both heard and understood the question. I know you have an attorney here tonight. If your attorney objects to any of the questions, I would stay quiet, let him place his objection on the record, and then he will give you instructions as to whether to answer the question despite the objection, whether to not answer the question, or whether or ask us to clarify the question before you provide an answer. Okay? We want to know what you know as well as what you do not know. So if we were to ask you a question, you truly have no idea what the answer is, you should say so. Nobody wants you to guess or make up an answer. However, there's a difference between a guess on the one hand and an approximation or an estimate on the other hand. So if we were to ask you a question dealing with, for example, time or dates, and you couldn't give an exact answer, but you can give a reasonable estimate or an approximation, we would ask that you do so. Just identify your answer as an approximation or an estimate so you're not held to an exact answer. For the court reporter, all your answers have to be verbal. So please answer your questions with yes, no, or a verbal response to the question as opposed to a shrug of the shoulders or a movement of the head. And I think those are all the instructions. If you are ready, you can come up to the table, and I would turn it over to Councilman Deal to start the proceedings off.
Thank you, Councilman. Welcome, Mr. Shi. At this time, I'll ask the court reporter to swear you in.
Excuse me, just a second. There were some preliminary matters. First, my name, Christopher Keating, counsel for. Good evening. My name is Christopher Keating. I'm counsel for Mr. Shi. Before we proceed to swearing in, there are some preliminary matters that must be addressed. If you could just give me 1 minute to set up, and then we could proceed. Thank you.
Go right ahead. Oh, thank you.
Thank you. As I stated, I represent the victim in this matter, Mr. Shi. My client has concerns, and I rightfully share them, regarding conflicts of interest involving members of this committee. These issues were raised yesterday with Mr. Malekschmidt, with who I had the pleasure of speaking multiple times in the past few days. And my client was informed that no committee member believes that he or she has a conflict requiring recusal. This was both surprising and disappointing. This committee's investigative powers come with coercive, highly invasive powers, providing members of the committee with powers that are not available to the general public, providing members of this committee with the power to compel testimony, obtain bank account records, and learn intimate details about one's personal lives. These are not toys. To prevent abuse and to prevent the appearance of abuse, every town has its own ethical codes. Most towns, municipalities in the state have adopted the state's ethical guidelines. Edison Township has. Those laws are not optional, and they should be enforced here. Although committees of the whole do not have a large body of legal precedent guiding their procedure, ethical laws do. And their restrictions should not be read broadly, but narrowly. Excuse me, should be read broadly, not narrowly. As the spirit of those laws is to protect the integrity of all governmental functions. The person who sent that flyer is not above the law. I am not above the law. Mr. Malekschmidt is not above the law. My client is not above the law. Nobody on the council is above the law. We all have respect for that principle, and that's why we are here today. Before I raise the ethical concerns with specificity, I'm going to read the relevant passages from NJSA 40A:9-22.5. Local government officers or employees under the jurisdiction of the local finance board shall comply with the following provisions. A, no local government officer or employee or member of his immediate family shall have an interest in a business organization or engage in any business, transaction, or professional activity which is in substantial conflict with the proper discharge of his duties in the public interest. C, no local government officer or employee shall use or attempt to use his official position to secure unwarranted privileges or advantages for himself or others. D, no local government officer or employee shall act in his official capacity in any matter where he, a member of his immediate family, or a business organization in which he has an interest, has a direct or indirect financial or personal involvement that might reasonably be expected, not certainly expected, reasonably be expected, to impair his objectivity or independence of judgment. There are three conflicts I'm going to highlight. I'm going to make this quick. Conflict one, Councilman Deal. There's evidence that Mr. Deal has lobbied for the presently vacant position of superintendent. The superintendent is chosen by the Board of Ed. Mr. Shi is the president of the Board of Ed. Mr. Shi will have a direct role in choosing the next superintendent. This is a voicemail that purports to be from Mayor Lenke to Councilman Joshi. AJ Patel.
Council, if you'd like to ask the council members if they'd like to recuse themselves, that would be acceptable. They understand their obligations under the law. They understand their own personal situations, and they can make those judgments. I'd like to move on with this proceeding, if you could please.
And I would like to continue, Mr. Malek-Schmidt. I'll make it quick. Here's a copy of the recording.
Please.
Sir, wait a minute, sir. Do not. Hold on. You're out of line, sir. Hold on. Shut the mic off. Hold on. Please, do not do that. Respect the council chambers.
Of course.
And allow it to continue through the proceedings, please. So this has been already discussed with the attorneys. So please do not go forward and move with actions that we haven't allowed.
With all due respect, Councilman, and I intend to make no disrespect towards the council, but this is a governmental body that has a record. No conversations thus far are part of the record. The only way to make them part of the record is to place them on the record.
We will allow them once the proceeding starts. But you haven't allowed the proceedings to begin. So please allow us to, I think those issues have been raised with council. No member is going to recuse themselves. So I think it's fair for the public and everybody else to be able to move on.
2 minutes or less. I just have to put the issues on the record, Councilman.
We'll allow you to put them on the record after the proceedings begin, sir.
But we can't start the proceedings until we handle conflicts.
Sir, I think you addressed those conflicts with the attorneys.
But they're not
I
on the
think-
record.
It's irrelevant. I think we given the, go ahead.
If you'd like to ask specific council members if they'd like to recuse yourselves, I think we could accommodate that briefly, but I don't know what this is right now. We've discussed this.
You do know what it is, sir. We discussed how the mayor and other people related to,
Direct the question to Councilman Deal or any other councilman, but I would like to get on with the proceedings. Thank you.
Councilman Deal, at any point in the past 2 years, have you requested that anybody solicit or take any moves or make any representations on your behalf inquiring about the superintendent position?
I may have, because every single day, that's not quite accurate, but very often people will say, "You'd make a great mayor." And I say, "Yeah, that's a good idea. Maybe someday I will be." "You'd make a great superintendent here in Edison." "Yeah, I believe I may."
Did you ever ask Mr. Lenke to reach out to anybody on the Board of Ed?
No, please, let's understand this. I've never initiated a single conversation. Anybody who ever came to me about being superintendent came to me and said, "Mr. Deal, you'd make a good superintendent." What am I'm going to disagree? But I've never asked anybody for anything, okay?
Can I read the transcript of Mr. Lenke's phone call?
Please, go ahead.
AJ, Tom Lenke, 4/22 Monday. Got a call from Bob Deal earlier today. Didn't realize that Mr. O'Malley had resigned in 90 days. He actually was calling for consideration in the superintendent's role. I didn't know that you guys were thinking, but we should talk about it. Give me a call when you get a chance. No rush. Talk to you later.
That's it? That's why I'm supposed to recuse myself, because of what you just read?
That's a conflict
That's
of
it?
interest.
That's it?
That's all you need.
That's all I need? Because perhaps Tom Lenke spoke to AJ Patel, left a message on his machine saying that I might be interested in the superintendent's position. You want me to disqualify myself from asking questions tonight?
That is correct.
I'm not going to do that.
Issue number 2. There's a conflict with Mr. Patil, as he might be a fact witness in this case. The Committee of the Whole has stated that a tenant of Mr. Patil was a member of and otherwise involved with People for Progress. The committee has spent the vast majority of its efforts investigating People for Progress. The committee has also discussed Mr. Deal and Mr. Patil and Mr. Joshi testifying before the committee, which is a recognition that they, along with other members of this committee, are fact witnesses. Fact witnesses meaning they might know pertinent information that might require them to testify. Therefore, since the committee has asked Mr. Patil to testify regarding his tenant, he is in fact a witness and should have no part in the investigation. I ask that Mr. Councilman Patil recuse himself.
Would you like to make a statement on that? I don't see any basis on the fact that someone may hypothetically be a fact witness at some certain point provides any particular basis of a conflict of interest in this case. But I'll let Mr. Councilman Patil make a final determination on that, as it is ultimately his responsibility.
It's a really tricky situation. I was not expecting, but is there a way you can give any opinion, any one of you?
Again, I mean, I don't see, do you intend to be a witness in front of this committee, Mr. Patil?
It depends. If I have been asked, I might.
Do you have any reason to believe you would ever be a witness?
I don't believe that, but. Again.
Exactly, and I don't see that you're.
It's the conflict, sir, with the investigation, Mr. Malik Schmidt.
I don't
Being a
see
part
how
of the
that's a conflict. Again, Mr. Councilman Patil understands his obligations. I don't see that there's a particular conflict to him. I will be clear that ultimately conflicts rest with the individual on the committee, or on the council, I should say. I'm not the council's attorney, I'm the committee's attorney. But when we discussed these issues, I did indicate to you that these were rather speculative, and given the fact that this is an investigation into the events of the election of 2017, in which many people participated, it's not clear, many people in the Democratic community, in the community at large participated. I don't see that it's permissible, probable, or in any sense logical to be drawing these kinds of distinctions to say anyone who may have somehow participated and could be theoretically a witness without any kind of actual evidence and just the mere specter of conflict. I think that that's, frankly, a waste of our time at this point, and we've wasted 20 minutes on this. If you can close this, that would be greatly appreciated.
As a officer of the court and as a former prosecutor, I know that you appreciate that conflicts of interest are not a waste of time.
They are when they're brought up ad nauseum after being addressed off the record. Please move on.
Point number 3, and my final point. This involves People for Progress in the campaign of Mayor Lenke and Councilmen Deal, Joshi, and Gomez. There's an abundance of evidence linking those 4 individuals and their campaign with People for Progress. First, according to testimony received by this committee, the Lenke, Deal, Joshi, and Gomez campaign and People for Progress utilized a common printer and designer, Skyway Strategies. Second, Mr. Hunt testified that the 2 entities utilized the same postal identification number. That is a huge fact. The commonalities are clear, as it solidifies their roles as fact witnesses and having the exact personal conflicts discussed in the ethics rules I earlier cited. Third, there is evidence of which this committee is plenty aware, linking the Lenke, Deal, Joshi, and Gomez campaign chair, Anthony Rusomano, with coordinating and being involved with the designing of flyers for People for Progress. As stated in the resolution that we cited, this committee, the matters under study are issues related to recent elections with the township. Insofar as People for Progress is suspected to be involved with the racist flyers, and insofar as People for Progress communicated with and potentially acted as a subsidiary of the Lenke, Deal, Joshi, Gomez campaign, each of the candidates are fact witnesses who potentially have information regarding, I'm almost done, the relationship between those 4 and People for Progress, individuals who had roles in that campaign and People for Progress, resources including mailing lists, voter information shared between the 2 groups, donors shared between the 2 groups, vendors including printers shared between the 2 groups, and campaign strategies and communications shared between the 2 groups. Once again, this is not a personal attack. There's no alleging of wrongdoing. Conflicts are not about being wrong or being bad people. Conflicts are about conflicts of interest, not of moral character or ethical judgment. Based on the above, Councilman Deal, Councilman Joshi, and Councilman Gomez are fact witnesses, and therefore they are conflicted from participating in this investigation and as members of the committee. In fact, the very conflicts that I mentioned earlier are the ones that should apply. But my client, the victim, could have possibly challenged the sufficiency of the subpoena, the legitimacy based on that ground alone. He didn't. He's tired of having his name smeared and appeared today in a showing of good faith over choosing to litigate. He has nothing to hide. For those reasons, as he shouldn't, he's a victim. For those reasons, we request that Councilman Deal, Councilman Joshi, and Councilman Gomez all recuse themselves from questioning Mr. Shi in this matter. I present their request to the council now.
I've already said that I'm going to ask questions. I'm not going to recuse myself. I'll turn it over to my fellow council members.
Yeah, so I'll keep this very blunt. I think the conclusions that you're trying to draw are bogus. And apart from the fact that they're factually incorrect, that's one part of it. And second, as it relates to me, you may not know this, but Mr. Shi knows this. I was also a victim of a negative mailer from People for Progress. So I don't want to elaborate any further, but I will tell you that I'm trying to get to the bottom of the racist flyer. And I hope that both of you are as well. And so I hope we proceed with the questioning.
Mr. Joshi, Councilman Joshi, in no way do I mean to disrespect you or your integrity. This was, and I sympathize and appreciate you being a victim as well. Once again, this is not about your moral character in any way, shape, or form. Given the facts and conflicts that I've raised so far, and the position that those individuals will provide salient testimony, in regards to Mr. Deal, Councilman Deal, Councilman Joshi, Councilman Patil, and Councilman Gomez, my client will not be taking questions from any of those four individuals this evening. In doing so, I cite the courtesy granted to Mr. Han as precedent. Last part, exhibits. We produced exhibits earlier today. We were told we couldn't show them. For what it's worth, we did provide adequate notice. In support of our ability to submit exhibits, and even on the spot, we cite the precedent of Investigator Comer showing up. He wasn't able to put his stuff on the screen, but he was allowed to present. The victim here, just like Mr. Joshi was able to tell the story in his own terms, respectfully so, my client, the victim, should be able to tell the story as he wants to tell it. Victims deserve to be heard in the light that they want to be heard. My client did not have a choice in what was in that flyer. He should have a choice in how he tells his story. And for the record, I received exhibits an hour before this proceeding. I asked for them well in advance. My statements have been made clear. Our positions have been made clear. I now produce my client to be sworn for testimony and for his opening statement.
Whoa, whoa, whoa. Excuse me, Council President.
Yes, sir.
Okay, I just want to be clear on what I just heard you say, and that is that Mr. Shi will not be questioned by four members of the people sitting up here? Will
That
not
is
answer-
correct.
Okay. Let me ask a question to you then, sir, okay? I don't know how long you've known about this case. I don't know that. This happened a couple years ago, this flyer being distributed or mailed, okay? Within 4 days, I sat where I sat now and said, we're going to get to the bottom of this. We're going to find out who did this. This is a horrible thing, disparaging our town. Nationwide, we were going to get to the bottom of this. The people in the audience know I said that every week for about a year. Every council meeting, we're going to get to the bottom of this. So my question is, if I'm the victim, if my picture is up there and my community is disparaged or disrespected, wouldn't I be anxious to come to these meetings? Wouldn't I be anxious to say, hey, let's get to the bottom of this. These council members, they're on my side. They're going to help me get to the bottom of this. They're going to find out who did this horrible thing. Why in the world would I come here months later after 3 subpoenas, after not participating or cooperating with the postal inspector, with not participating or cooperating with the police department, not showing up? Why would you come here today and say, we're not going to answer any questions from you?
I don't speculate, sir.
But see, sir, I don't understand that thinking, because if I'm truly a victim, I'm thankful for a council that's going to get to the bottom of this horrible thing. So I don't understand why you come here months later with a lawyer and say, oh, I'm not answering anybody's questions.
Excuse me, we're not going to attack my client for having a lawyer.
What do you think?
That's not acceptable.
Excuse me, what do you think our role is? That's a simple question, Counselor.
It is
What do
not
you think
acceptable to attack my client for having an attorney.
Sorry, he's addressing you, sir.
I'll say it to you, sir. What do you think our role is here? Do you think our role is to get anybody? Because nobody's accused anybody, and I don't think you've been to all these meetings, but I have. Nobody's accused anybody of anything. We've asked for information. We've had several people come here and give us information, which has been helpful. It's taken some strange twists, I will say that. It's in a very curious place right now. But our role is to find out what happened. So I need to understand, because right now I'm not understanding why you, representing Mr. Shi, your position would be that the people who created this committee of the whole to get to the bottom of it can't ask any questions of a person who has not cooperated since May, been subpoenaed 3 times, finally here tonight, hasn't cooperated with the postal inspector or the police department, has evaded almost everything, has never shown up, and now we can't ask questions? Can you explain that to me, Counselor?
I had a longer statement prepared, but I was told to hurry up.
No, I just need you to explain why your position seems to me as defensive. It seems defensive to me. If my picture is on that thing, if I'm truly a victim, thank God for these people who are going to get to the bottom of it. Why do I come? Why do I put off everybody for months, show up, and then suddenly say, well, nobody can ask me any questions?
With all due respect,
What?
Councilman, you don't get to tell a victim how to feel and how to respond.
That's a very good question. Who's the victim?
That wasn't a question.
My question to you, who's the victim?
The victim is Mr. Shi and the
He's the
town of
victim.
Edison and all the good people
He's
in
the
it.
victim. Okay, well then why will he not let us ask him and help him? Why can't we ask questions to help him find out who did this terrible thing to him?
You do mischaracterizing the feelings or position of a victim.
I'm
is
asking
not
for
acceptable.
clarification, sir, because you
He's here
just did
tonight.
something that I truly don't understand. We formed this committee to get to the bottom of it way before any of the things you're talking about. Here we formed this committee to get to the bottom of it, and tonight you show up and say, well, we're not going to answer, you can't answer questions because, and this is really good, okay? In my case, because there was an interest perhaps in Superintendent of Edison, dude, explain to me how, please, explain to me how that is a conflict.
Counsel, would you like me to speak?
No, I would like, yeah, I'm sorry, I would like you to explain that to me, yes.
Yes, sir.
I would recommend that you get legal advice from town council or the council attorney.
What are you afraid of, Counselor? A question I may have?
I'm not afraid of anything, and
Then
neither
why
is my
wouldn't you
client.
answer a question?
Because conflicts of interest are conflicts
And
of interest.
how is that a conflict of interest?
It's already placed on the record.
You made a statement. You said it was a conflict. You didn't
Look,
explain
you're
how it's a
cutting me off.
conflict.
I was
How
going
is
to
it a
read-
conflict?
I was reading the prepared statement. I was told to hurry up, and now we're spending 20 minutes on this. Pick one. What do you want? Do you want me, do you
Sir,
want me to go
understand. This is a committee of the whole meeting. We've had people come here. They've answered questions. Some of the people have voluntarily answered questions for almost an hour, and we really appreciated that. I appreciate Mr. Shi showing up tonight. Thank you very
Thank
much.
you.
But to say, well, we showed up, but we're not answering any questions from you, and you. Well, what kind of committee of the whole meeting is that? What kind of, that's disingenuous. You didn't come here trying to get to the bottom of this. You came here trying to say, well, we're going to figure out a way not to answer questions from you, Mr. Deal, and you, Mr. Joshi, and you, Mr. Gomez, and you, Mr. Patil. And no matter what, I'm still waiting for an answer for that.
We're ready to proceed.
To proceed with what? How are we going to hold the meeting if he's not going to answer our questions? What, are you afraid of my questions? Are you afraid that somehow I'm going to reveal something that would put Mr. Shi in a bad light or incriminate him? That's not my intent. My intent is to get to the bottom of it. I just don't understand why someone would act so defensive in this situation. Are you coming here to get to the bottom of it, or are you coming in to play a game? I don't get it.
Yeah, Council President, this does seem like a game to me, because Mr. Keating came in here advising us that this was discussed with Mr. Malik Schmidt prior to tonight's hearing, and he just wanted to place it on the record. But you didn't tell Mr. Malik Schmidt prior to tonight's hearing that Mr. Shi would not accept any questions from 4 of the 7 committee members up here.
That's
Correct.
correct.
That's correct.
Correct.
So I don't know
Well,
what
what are you
sort of
doing?
gamesmanship this is, but why didn't you tell Mr. Malik Schmidt prior to the hearing tonight, after you discussed the alleged conflicts of interest, that Mr. Shi was not going to accept questions from those 4 members?
When we received notice that there would not be recusals, we took it under advisement, and it's being provided now.
And when was that told to you? Because I know I got the email this morning.
And I got the last email from the council about an hour ago.
Which email was that?
That was with exhibits.
Okay.
Two
So-
remaining exhibits that were added this afternoon. With regard to the recusal issue that was discussed yesterday.
No, okay. So it was discussed yesterday, but you just took it under advisement today and decided that you and your client would not accept questions from 4 of the members of this body.
That is our position.
Okay. And
Why?
Would you agree, Mr. Keating, that when you ask a judge or someone else to recuse themselves, right, it's up to them to ultimately make that decision, correct?
With all due respect, the
Correct.
problem, yes, it's a decision
Okay.
of the judge
So,
who's lacking
you've
from this
asked Mr.
proceeding.
Deal, you've asked Mr. Gomez, you've asked Mr. Joshi, and you've asked Mr. Patil at this point to recuse themselves from asking any questions. They have declined that request. And now your position is, well, since they declined that request, I'm not going to accept any questions from those 4 members of this body.
That is correct.
Is that your position?
Yes.
Okay. So then I would suggest that Mr. Deal, Mr. Gomez, Mr. Patil, and Mr. Joshi still ask your questions and let Mr. Shi either plead the 5th or stay quiet to let the people of this town know. I
That's-
still want your
Thank you.
questions asked.
Thank you, sir.
And if Mr. Shi
Thank you.
decides not to answer those questions, then Mr. Shi doesn't answer those questions. At this point, I think we've belabored this. I think Mr. Shi should be sworn in, and let's move on with the proceeding.
He is produced for the council.
Are we moving on?
Let's have him swear in.
Swear in, please. Yes. Proceed.
Okay, thank you, Council President. Mr. Shi, what was your role in the 2017 Board of Education election?
My client has been advised to not accept answers from 4 members of this committee.
If I may ask the attorney to relay that question to Mr. Shi then.
Mr. Shi, what was your role in the 2017 election?
I have a statement to make before I answer any questions. Can I make a statement?
You may make a statement.
Thank you.
But please
Thank you.
keep it reasonable in length, please.
Give me 1 second.
Can you speak into the mic?
Council President Joe
Good evening.
President.
Can you hear me?
Thank you, sir.
Good evening. My name is Jerry Shi. I'm a school board member. I would like to thank the council for calling me here today. I am glad we were able to schedule this meeting today. As members of this council are aware, I was unable to attend prior meetings due to conflicts. First, my daughter, who I am so proud of, graduated from West Point this year and is now serving our country in the Army. Second, I was traveling out of the country on a family trip planned several months ago, but I'm glad to be here today. I want to begin by thanking the thousands of Edison residents that have supported me when I ran in 2017. Together, over the past 2 years, we have achieved a great deal. We have saved the residents of Edison over $8.2 million, all of it in non-classroom spending. We did so by identifying fraud, waste, abuse, and fat from the district spending and by taking on vendors who were overcharging the district. We did a performance audit and implemented vendor bidding reforms. We have started the process of solving the overcrowding crisis, adding classrooms to Woodrow Wilson and FDR. We are on the path to expanding Edison High School, J.P. Stevens, and other four schools, and finally implementing a full-day kindergarten program. We have increased access to our schools, to our parents. We started online residency verification and registration programs. We are piloting GPS program for school buses. We have made significant reforms to our curriculum. These are just some of the board's many accomplishments over the past 2 years. They would not be possible for the parents, teachers, taxpayers of Edison without the assistance of certain members on the council. Thank you for that. Unfortunately, while we have made a great deal of progress, the stench of the 2017 Make Edison Great Again flyers lingers in our township. These flyers were without question vile and disgraceful. I was a subject of those flyers and have been forever traumatized by this experience. To this day, it is hurtful to me and my family to see them being posted on social media, the newspaper, and even here today, sitting right in front of me here. In the aftermath of the flyers, I felt a sense of paralysis and felt like I had been hit by a truck. I could not even get myself to go out and continue campaigning until I was encouraged to do so by my running mate, Paul DiStefano. I shudder to think about the flyers and try to avoid seeing them or talking about the whole ordeal to anyone, even those who wanted to help me. I did not want to relive it over and over again. Nearly 2 years have passed since these flyers were sent, yet they continue to inflict pain for me and my family. During my appearance today, I will provide you with whatever information I have, but I also want to express the impact that they have had on my life and the lives of my family members. That said, this took place 2 years ago. I will try my best to give specific answers as my memory allows. For example, I do not recall when I first saw the flyer or who first sent me the flyer. I do remember being angry and hurt when I first saw it. But I can say this, I did not send this flyer. There has been much speculation as to who was behind the flyer, and I trust law enforcement will ultimately identify the person or persons. I will not engage in a parlor game and speculate as to who it might be. Let me also address the group known as People for Progress, the entity this committee has focused much of its attention on. I have never met individuals who this committee has identified as being connected with People for Progress. I am not a member of People for Progress. I have not donated to People for Progress, and it has, to the best of my knowledge, not donated to my campaign. During the 2017 campaign, our team was a subject of a number of attacks and false rumors, similar to the infamous racist flyer. But even before that flyer, some called us outsiders. My attorney asked certain exhibits to be admitted for this evening's meeting, but the committee refused to do so. So big copies were printed, and I will read them into the record. Can you please show the first one? Exhibit 1. This is a Facebook posting on that time the candidate, William Araujo. This is in the middle of the paragraph, by Mel Venticano. Good luck, Willie. Lead our team to victory so that we can take our BOE back from the outsiders. William Araujo, thanks, Mel. These outsiders have created a terrible working environment, particularly for our teachers and support staff, which I put solely blame on the superintendent, who happens to be a very good friend of Governor Christie. Frank Heelan, the outgoing board president, wants to extend his superintendent contract to 5 years without holding a public meeting to explain why and a figure amount. Horrible indeed. This is Exhibit 1. Exhibit 2A. Others say the biggest mistake Edison made was to let Asians enter this town. This is Exhibit 2A. This is a posting on Keithon's post. The person is Joanne Fiore. Well, start by putting the kids that need the most attention and stop letting others overcome Edison. It looks like Japan and India here. Margot Harris' response, right. In other words, let's just only allow white people to live in Edison and attend our schools. After all, they are the ones who clearly need the most attention, certainly much more than the others. Joanne Fiore's response, well, I'm sorry, Joanne Fiore, when I become the minority, yes, that's exactly what I'm saying. And so far, and as far as space, they have no problem with putting up apartments everywhere. So that's pure BS. Others spread false and distasteful narratives about the Chinese school. Can I request this? Oh, this is still the 2B. The 2B illustration. In the middle of that exhibition, Mike CEE, immigration scam. Talk about biting the hand that feeds you. Edison's past mayor did the town such a disservice by encouraging the mass influx of Asian immigrants into the town. That's Exhibit 2A and 2B. So Exhibit 3 is this, we have others spread false and distasteful narratives about the Chinese school. In the middle, in the second paragraph of that exhibition, for example, we see self-proclaimed Lanky team member and current Edison Board of Education member, Jerry Shi, foistering his pet project, quote, quote, Chinese school, on the taxpayers of Edison. These Chinese school activities rent space in our township's public schools at a rate that is far less than the rental rates charged to all the other Edison groups and activities. But here's the best part. Most of these attending these Chinese school activities are not even residents of Edison. That's right. Part of your school tax emblems, those outside our community to take advantage of the schools we support with our hard-earned taxpayer dollars. This is totally false. And this webpage was dedicated to attacking the minority community. It was run by Don Tarr and Steve Nagel. These were just some of the many, many personal and racial-based attacks we endured public on a daily basis. But at the same time, the entire Unity team slate was lucky to enjoy the support of the mayor and several members of this council. As some of you may be aware, Mr. Lanky endorsed our entire slate. Can I ask the council to show the council Exhibit I? With Lanky's endorsement letter.
I thought you were speaking to your council, Mr. Shea.
No, I'm
My
asking you
apologies.
guys, the council.
As a courtesy, I am displaying what's been pre-marked as Exhibit I from prior proceedings. It seems that
Okay,
if the PowerPoint
thank you.
cooperates, there it goes.
This is endorsement letter from Mayor Lanky to endorse the entire Unity team. Mr. Lanky and his team were extremely helpful to our campaign. I believe they understood that me and my running mates were not experienced politicians. And so the Lanky campaign often offered helpful tips. They provided resources and guidance. For example, the Dio, Joshi, Gomez, and Lanky campaign team provided our volunteers with a walk list, maps, a meeting place, restroom facilities, and water to rest. I do not have a list of timeline of this help, but I do remember some instances. For example, Mr. Russomano, who I understood to be the campaign chair for Mr. Lanky, Mr. Dio, Mr. Joshi, and Mr. Gomez, provided us with guidance on what districts to walk and when to walk them. Mr. Russomano scheduled a call with a gentleman, Tony Gallardo, to discuss concepts for our campaign literature. Others, such as Councilman Lombardi, Councilman Sandowski, and Councilman Gomez, helped us raise money by attending our fundraisers and meeting our donors. Can I ask to Exhibit 4? This is the fundraising at the beginning of the campaign. You can see 3 councilmen there, okay? Can I show Exhibit 4B?
I can't see that. Can I see the picture?
We're gonna provide it to you. We have here.
As long as you come closer, I can see it.
We have copies here. We can give it to you. You want it?
Either one. Council President,
I think just in the interest of time, just if you could walk it closer, that would be great.
Just, provide it up. Or hand it to the clerk. You can hand it to the clerk, it's fine. Whatever.
I'd prefer a copy if I can have, Council
If you
President.
can have a copy, give him a copy.
Can we finish with the opening statement before getting copies? I mean, I
Well,
think that
because
could be
that's
done
part
at
of,
any
this is
time.
part of the opening statement. It has these exhibits, so you can look
I
at
know, but your attorney's showing them right there, so.
We're on 4B.
Thank you, Council President.
Go ahead, Mr. Shi, you can proceed.
Okay. That's 4B. That is showing that, is that a 4B or 4C? That's me speaking with Mr. Sandowski at the same event.
If you could just remember to speak into the mic.
Okay. That's me speaking with Mr. Sandowski at the same event. We should have another one. And that's also the same event. Mr. Lombardi speaking to the supporters. Okay, so that's done, right, that's right. Others, such as Councilman Dio and Councilman Joshi, attended our campaign events.
That's false.
I did not report each.
Mr.
Blatantly
Shea,
false.
I never attended
Blatantly
one of your
false.
But
campaign
for
events.
example, we were lucky enough to have them join us for a backyard meet and greet at a home near Menlo Park Mall.
No,
That's,
You
sir.
did.
no.
They spoke
Not
to
binding.
residents, and their public appearance with our team and their support were greatly appreciated. You guys did. We all appreciate the support of Mayor Lanky, Councilman Dio, Joshi, Gomez, Lombardi, Sandowski, Patil, and Coy. Despite the negative attacks, my team and I were committed to a policy-based campaign. To this end, we had a number of meetings, too many to recall or count, where we discussed programs that we wanted to implement. Our volunteers went door to door, and many times they came back with feedback on what issues residents were having. Others made suggestions. We helped draft letters for neighbors and parents. This was a very grassroots campaign. I understand the committee had questions regarding a particular meeting in October. I do not have a specific recollection of that meeting. As I said, there were many meetings. Some members of the council refer them as strategic meetings. While all campaign meetings are strategic, from what I recall, the October meeting was one of a dozens where we discussed the school budget, tax dollars, and how much money was going towards salaries and vendors compared to the classroom. While I do not recall every little detail of these meetings from 2 years ago, Generally speaking, the result of these meetings helped shape the policy that I have described at the beginning of my statement. Since the 2017 election, I have generally become aware of things that saddened me. For example, earlier this year, I learned in an article on Inside New Jersey that Mr. Russomanno may have coordinated negative mailers on behalf of People for Progress. Exhibit 5A, please. This is an article from Inside New Jersey talking about that
Mr. Shi, if
Talking
we
about-
can, Mr. Shi?
Yes.
If we can, please, the opening statement has been extensive. I'll allow you to wrap it up, but I will certainly expect that you allow the council members that will ask questions. the same
I'm gonna be
courtesy of
here for a
time.
whole night if you want.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, I'm wrapping
But,
up.
but, yes, thank you.
Council
please.
President, he should have the time he needs. I
Sir,
disagree.
no,
That's his
that's
point of-
okay, but I'm the council
point of
president, I'm
request.
running the meeting, so
I think
I
everybody's
accept
gonna
your
ask a lot of
opinion, I
questions.
accept your
We're
opinion,
gonna be here
sir.
all night, and that's not fair.
I
but that's
accept
just
your
my-
opinion, sir.
I listened to it on
Thank you.
Facebook.
Go ahead,
I listened to
proceed, sir.
Facebook for the last 20 minutes, and I heard that statement. But if this is his position to take the fifth, it's his position.
Thank you,
I-
Councilman
I need
Foyle.
to- I
Go
need to
ahead and
have my-
proceed, Mr. Shi.
If it's whatever his position is, I'm sorry, it's whatever his position is, his
What
position.
is it?
Okay, anyway, I'm not here to interrupt you. Continue.
Yes,
through
please,
the Council
good-
President.
please.
Okay, so that was Exhibit 5A. And also, can you show Exhibit 5B? That is a letter from Skyway Strategies to Mr. Russomanno. That was also mentioned in that particular article. I also learned, thanks to Officer Keith Hahn's testimony, that Councilman Deal, Joshi, and Gomez mailed flyers that use the same mail permit number as People for Progress. I also learned that one member of the council was lobbying for the position of superintendent, which the recorder has already been played. These things are too complex for me to understand. I have never been much of a politician or understood inside politics. I know one thing, that I am committed to improving our schools for the betterment of our 16,800 students and help reduce the taxpayers' burden. I will continue to work on those issues that are close to my heart, and I will rely on law enforcement to investigate the Make Edison Great Again flyers and hopefully get to the bottom of it. Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, Mr. Shi, you mentioned in your opening statement that you have faith that law enforcement will be able to solve this. Why has it been stated by our local law enforcement agency and our police department that you have not been cooperative with them?
My client has been advised to not accept questions from 4 members of this committee.
We're going to do this all night? Let's go ahead, and you have the attorney ask the same question, please.
Mr. Shi, have you cooperated with law enforcement with regard to the flyer at issue, the 2017 flyer that's been marked as Exhibit A?
I don't understand the word of cooperate.
Could you just
Have you-
You
clarify?
don't understand the word of cooperate?
Can you clarify that?
Board of Education president.
Please.
It's a fair question to ask for clarity as to what cooperation entails.
Have you spoken to law enforcement about the flyer, Mr. Shi?
No.
Why not?
Has
My
law-
client has been directed to not answer questions from 4 members of this committee.
Has law enforcement spoken to you, Mr. Shi?
Sir, sir.
I can't hear.
Crowd, please, sir.
Has law enforcement spoken to you about the flyer, Mr. Shi?
Yes, they came, and the time was not right. And I stated in my statement, okay, it's not your picture on it, it's mine. How I feel about it, it's mine. You guys will never feel being an immigrant and your picture being on the national news and your family sees this, okay? You will never have the feeling of how hurtful it is. So it is my decision, it's my choice to keep quiet. As I state in my statement, I do not want to relive this experience again. It was a horrible experience. I do not want to live it. I do not expect anyone to live through this experience. The only person who can relate to that experience is Falguni. None of you guys can relate to that. And that was my choice of deal with it.
I appreciate
Council President, my question was, in Mr. Xi's opening statement, he said he had faith that law enforcement would solve this problem, crime, this situation, and yet he says he won't cooperate. Why won't he cooperate? Other than he says that he's the victim of it, why did you not participate or cooperate with the postal inspector?
My client has been advised to not answer questions from 4 members of this committee.
Go ahead, sir.
Mr. Shi, why did you not cooperate with the postal inspector?
I state the same reason. I do not want to relive the experience. It was a horrible experience. Nobody understands it, okay? Only me and Fal can experience it. You guys will never understand what that feels when your picture is on there.
Who put it there?
My client has been advised to not answer questions from 4 members of this committee.
Council President, we had a former Board of Education member, a Board of Education member, and a police officer from the Edison Police Department in previous testimony suggest that Mr. Xi was the architect, he was responsible, he had some responsibility for the flyer. Mr. Xi, what do you say to those people?
My client has been advised to not answer questions from 4 members of this committee.
Mr. Shi, what do you say to accusations that you were informed about the flyer before it was disseminated?
As I stated, I did not send the flyers.
That wasn't my question, Mr. Shi.
I did not send the flyers.
I said, were you informed, did you know about the flyer before it was sent through the U.S. mail?
I do not know when it was sent, so I don't know how to answer your question.
Were you informed about the flyer before it was in the news?
I do not know when it was sent, so I did not send the flyer, so I can't answer your question. I don't know what your question is about.
Let's take a step back on this. First, I just want to say that victims do deserve to be heard, and we really appreciate you coming here tonight.
Thank
You've
you.
been
Appreciate
invited for a long time. It's been a long time coming. We sincerely appreciate it.
And I gave you the reason why I couldn't come.
I appreciate that.
And
The
there
other
are
thing,
legitimate reasons, and someone member of this council try to spin it.
well, we'll get to that point. I think that, I do want to also mention that with regard to the cooperation with the council, with the committee in particular, that many of the witnesses who have come before us have brought evidence before the committee, specifically to the attorneys. We've appreciated that. It's allowed us to present the evidence, go over it, put it in context, figure it out. In this particular context, I just, for point of order, need to take issue with the council's representation as to adequate notice insofar as receiving exhibits the morning of is in no way adequate notice in this particular context. Moving on to those exhibits, the Facebook messages that you read into the record, were those received by you personally?
Those were posted on the Facebook.
But were they posted on your Facebook page?
Yeah, so I mentioned one is on Willie Arugio's Facebook, one is on Keith Hunt's Facebook, and the third one was a Facebook dedicated to attack the minority community.
Understood.
And do you have the dates for those postings?
Do I have the dates? I might have.
I didn't see those on the exhibits.
No, this doesn't have the dates. It doesn't have the exact dates, but it's during the campaign time. It's in the 2017 campaign.
The individuals that you mentioned by name, do you know them?
Do I know those? I know Willie Arugio.
The individuals,
I know Keith Hunt.
the statements, that you read statements made by particular individuals posted
Some
on
of them I
Facebook?
do, yes.
Okay. Did you speak to them before publicizing their statements here tonight?
I don't need to speak to them. They publish themselves.
The question was, did you speak to them before publicizing their
I don't want
statements
to
here?
speak to them. There's no need for me to speak to them. They
Again,
publish it themselves.
The question is, did you speak to them?
No.
Okay. Generally speaking, taking a step back, what was your role during the 2017 election?
Mr. Malishman, before we get off the exhibits for a second, I just had a couple of questions. For example, exhibits 1, 2A, 2B, and 3. What was the intent of bringing those exhibits to this meeting tonight?
The intent of bringing those exhibits to the meeting is to show the similarity of the message that was in this hate mail versus the contents of these postings.
Okay. And were these all posted around the same time as the November 2017 election?
That was posted in the 2017, yes, that's during the campaign.
Okay. And you provided these to Mr. Keating, who is your third attorney at this point, on Friday or Saturday, over the weekend?
Yeah, it was
May I answer that?
Well, no, I'd like Mr. Shi to answer. You've answered enough questions on his behalf.
I think over the weekend, yes.
Okay. In the close to 2 years since the time of the election, have you ever provided any of these exhibits to Edison Police or the postal inspector?
I did not speak with them.
So the answer is no. You've never provided these to law enforcement, the postal inspector, the Edison Police, the Middlesex County Prosecutor's Office, or the State DAG's office?
I would assume they can go find themselves. The answer is no.
The answer is no. Okay. But you knew about this hearing and you took these documents and presented them to your attorney and provided them over the weekend to Mr. Keating, correct?
I'm sorry? Can you repeat the question? I'm sorry.
So in the 2 years that you've had these statements, you didn't provide them to anybody else except Mr. Keating, is that correct?
Correct. I said over the weekend, it could be yesterday as well. I don't remember. I was just, there was a lot of email exchanges between me and my attorney. So it could be over the weekend, or it could be yesterday.
Did you provide these documents to Mr. Colello?
No.
Did you provide these documents to
Excuse
Mr.
me, you're asking for attorney-client privilege, Counselor?
No, I'm asking if he provided documents to prior
You're
attorneys.
asking about conversations with his attorney.
No, I'm asking if he provided them with documentation. I never asked about a conversation he had with an
Either way,
attorney.
it's a communication, Councilman.
I disagree. So your objection is noted. You can tell your client to answer the question or not answer the question.
I would like the advisement of the committee attorney.
I believe this is your determination to make, Counselor.
No, I did not provide before. Because I was not coming, so.
Okay. And the Exhibit 5B was an email, I believe?
Yes,
How did you come to be in possession of this document?
this email was, the contents was published on the InsideNJ.com. Right, was it?
No, this is 5B. This is a Gmail email.
This content, I think this one was posted somewhere on the Facebook. Or on the internet. This is contents. It was never sent to me. We just lifted it.
And again, what was your intent of showing that to us tonight?
To showing the intent of this is to say that, we got a lot of support from the Lanky deal.
That's not what it says.
No, I haven't finished it. Don't interrupt me, please. Okay, from the campaign. And the communication that's been going on for People's Progress and Skyway Communications.
Council President, I just want to state for the record, to say that you got support from the Lanky team, including Deal, okay, you can't say that. And please don't say that. You won't see my signature there. I was never at your campaign events. I didn't give you any money. I did not support you, okay? So please do not say that the Deal put my name in there. That's wrong. That's false. That's spin. I would like to ask the counselor, though, where you got that transcript for my supposed conflict of interest. Where did that come from? What was the origin of that?
If you'd like to place a request in writing, I'll respond to it in due course.
No, everybody's here. Come on, be transparent. Where did you get it?
Proceed, Councilman.
I'm asking you a question, sir. You presented a conflict of interest, and you had evidence, you had a transcript. I'm asking you where you got it.
I believe the point has been resolved.
How?
Thank you, Councilman.
Why are you being evasive? Why are you not answering the question?
Thank you, Councilman.
I'd also like to know the date of that particular transcript as well, if it's known.
I do not know the date.
I also want to, because my name has been mentioned, make it very clear that, for the record, officially, I had nothing at all to do with the Unity campaign, People for Progress, at all, whatsoever. I was not for it. I was not against it. Completely neutral, because I had my own race for the first time, and I wanted nothing to do with the Board of Education race at all. I'm here because perhaps I can't understand or fathom the amount of hurt that you have knowing that your picture was on this. I can't. I don't know what it's like to be in your shoes, and I agree with that. But I do know how much hurt it is to have an immigrant being labeled like that. And that's the reason why I'm here, trying to get to the bottom of this. So please don't paint my name at all in any way as if I was somehow a part of the Unity or Unity team at all whatsoever. I was doing my own thing on my campaign. I even had my own I even had my own donation account. I was not part of the Unity team at all.
Councilman Lombardi had other questions?
I just have a few more questions about these exhibits. Since my firm has been investigating this, and we usually like to get the exhibits well beforehand, I just need to find out some things. So the Facebook postings, you said these are from 2017, correct?
Correct.
Okay, because they note 7 weeks as the date on them. So did you take a picture of them 7 weeks after they've been posted or something like that?
Because I was during that time.
Okay, so you've held on to them since then?
Yes.
Since that point, and you have not shared them with law enforcement or with myself or my partner, correct?
Already answered that question, correct.
Correct, okay.
And Council President, just to go back to that recording, so you do not know the date that that was recorded?
Me?
Yes.
I don't know what date that was recorded.
How did you obtain that voice message between Mayor Lanke and Councilman Patil?
Our attorney already responded.
No, I'm asking you the question. Your attorney responded saying, make that request in writing and we'll respond. But I'm asking you, how did you come to obtain that message?
When you send a request, he will respond to you.
Were you provided that recording by somebody else?
When you send a request, he will respond to you.
The pictures marked exhibits 4A, 4B, 4C, who took those pictures?
My friends,
Okay.
and maybe if I'm not in the picture, I probably took it. I'm in the picture, so it's not me. Some of my friends.
All right, thank you.
Counselor, could you just walk me through, I'm just confused, the Unity campaign and the Mayor Lanke campaign, just for the listeners, I got lost in that mix there. There's a Unity campaign and there's a Mayor Lanke campaign? Do you,
If you'd like to ask the witness, to be
You're the
honest,
counsel.
I'm not
You
sure
can
if I
ask the
followed.
witness. He's made note of the campaign, so you can ask the witness, Mr. Coyle.
Mr. Shi, can you identify the two separate campaigns, Unity campaign, and Mr. Joshi stated he's not part of the Unity campaign, and there is a Mayor Lanke team campaign? Just,
Yeah, so the Unity team is for the Board of Ed. The Democratic team is for the council. As I stated in my statement, we're very grateful to receive the support from that campaign. We were able to, as I stated, getting the walk pieces, getting the schedules, and also was scheduled for phone calls with Tony Gallardo to discuss some campaign, mailing strategies. So we've been working very closely together, those two campaigns. And I have personally carried the flyers of the council team when I was walking. And a lot of the Unity team volunteers has carried the flyer for the council team. So that's what I can say.
Council President, I have to say it again because I'm not going to let this go on like this, okay? The teams did not work together. If you had members who were working on the council team help you, they did not include Councilman Joshi or Councilman Deal. That didn't happen, and that ought to be stated. If you want to say there were members of the council team that gave you mailings or walk lists or whatever, you cannot use the term team, include me in it, when I wasn't in it. Thank you.
Mr. Shi, suffice to say, you ran in 2017 as part of the BOE Unity team for school board. Is that correct?
Correct.
And as that team, did you generally make the decisions on the Unity team, or was that left up to somebody else?
We are all equal partners.
So it would be unfair to say that you made decisions above anybody else on the Unity team.
We have, each team members have different strengths and play different roles. We all work together. It's a team. That's why we call it a unity team, because we are all working together.
Did you consult everybody on the team with regard to the actions you took on behalf of the team?
Yes.
So if you sent, I'm sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off.
We had a lot of discussions about what we need to do as a team.
So was there one person or persons who generally made decisions on behalf of the Unity team?
The team members are equally members.
Did you ever take actions on behalf of the Unity team that were not approved by others on the Unity team?
I can't remember.
Is it possible that you took actions on behalf of the Unity team that other people on the Unity team did not approve of?
Sir, I don't remember.
So you can't say whether or not it's possible?
Sir, I don't remember.
Well, I don't remember.
There were so many meetings, there were so many decisions made. I don't remember every decision that was made.
Did you ever have to
It was
retain?
2 years ago, sir, and I
understand.
don't even remember, what I had for. I don't even remember what I had for dinner 2 weeks ago. Do you?
Probably not.
Okay, thank you.
The Unity team mailings, did you design those?
Me as a member of the team, my job is to get a walk list, get a map, knock on doors, and talk to the voters, as many as I can. Just like a lot of the people on the council, you guys run different races. You have different roles to play. I have the same role as a lot of the council members.
But that wasn't the question. The question was, did you design any flyers on behalf of the Unity team?
I did not design any flyers, and just like a lot of the council members were asked at the previous meeting, what happens with the primary? That was the distasteful racist flyer was sent out. All of them say they don't know anything about who designed it. I was the same vote. I was a candidate. My job was to take a list, get a map, knock on doors, and speak to the voters, get their concerns, and talk to them.
Well, how is it that you were co-equal members of the team, but you didn't work on the flyers?
We have, you can ask the other council members on the diocese what their roles are when they come to the design their campaign flyers. We have a lot of volunteers. We have a lot of parents who put their time in to help with the campaign literature.
So it's your testimony that you did not design any flyers for the Unity team?
I did not involve in any design of the unity. That's done by a lot of volunteers.
Okay, but you did not do it, just to be clear.
I was not involved in designing of it. The other fact is I am a colorblind. A lot of people know I'm the colorblind person, okay? You want me to design a flyer, that's the last thing you want to do, is have a colorblind person design a literature for a campaign.
Now, I'm going to place in front of you what's been pre-marked as Exhibit B2. I'll ask the stenographer to do that. B2, thank you.
Thank you.
Mr. Shi, if you could take a moment.
Council President, are there copies of this?
There are.
May I have copies when you have a
They're
moment?
coming
I can
down the
wait.
line. Mr. Shi, if you could take a moment to review that, I'd appreciate it.
Yeah, thank you.
Mr. Shi, do you recognize that flyer?
Yes, I do.
Do you have any recollection of who created that flyer?
No,
Can you tell me who designed this flyer?
I don't know. I don't remember, I don't know.
Did you authorize the sending of this flyer?
I don't recall, I don't know.
When was the first time you've seen this flyer?
I don't remember. There are a lot of flyers happened in 2017.
How many
There's a
flyers
lot
would
of-
you say your campaign sent in 2017?
Probably 2, 3, 4. I don't remember.
Your testimony is that your campaign sent potentially on the magnitude of 4 flyers during
There
the
are probably 2,
2017
3, 4
campaign.
campaign flyers that was sent by the Unity team, yeah.
I'm sorry, I didn't understand your
There are
testimony.
probably probably 3, 4 flyers that sent by the Unity team.
And this would be one of them.
It says Unity team, then it is it.
But you don't specifically recognize that this is, you don't specifically recall this as one of your campaign flyers, is that
It
correct?
says what it is, and it is.
I understand, but the question was if you specifically recalled it as one of the flyers that was sent out on behalf of your campaign.
This paid for by, so that's the Unity team, you
Mis-
know,
mis-
it was sent up. I don't recall who's, you know, this is a flyer that's sent on behalf of the campaign, yes, but that's basically it. It says right here.
I understand that it says on the, essentially on the address portion of the flyer that says BOE Unity Team, is that correct?
Mm-hmm.
But you don't
Yes,
recall
I'm
this
sorry.
particular,
Yes, I'm sorry.
but you don't recall this particular flyer, is that correct?
There are a lot of flyers being sent out during the whole campaign, yes, it's, you know, I don't specifically recall on this one.
You'd characterize 4 flyers as a lot?
I don't know what's the definition of a lot.
I don't know, those were your words. I'm asking you what you would
No,
characterize as a lot.
I'm saying that throughout the whole campaign, there are a lot of flyers, you know, flying back and forth from different campaigns, from the mayor's campaign and from the, you know, all the other campaigns together. So a lot of flyers.
Counsel, just for clarity, is that relative to other campaigns?
No,
or-
it's relative to his campaign. I believe the testimony was that there were 4 flyers, and that you have no reason to disagree that this is one of those 4 flyers. Is that correct?
Yeah.
But you don't recall this flyer.
I don't record this flyer, but yeah.
Do you recall
Council
any
President,
flyers from your
can we
campaign?
get to the point, Council President?
Sir, allow the counselor
It's
to ask the
ridiculous.
question.
We're talking about one
You were
fly-
not here for the
I-
first 20
I
minutes.
listened to
We
it
allow
on
Mr. Shi to give his
Facebook.
testimony.
Council
Sir,
President,
sir,
it's-
so please, I
We're
will
talking
allow
about
the
one
counselor,
flyer.
I
He's
will
a
allow the
professional, should get to the
counselor,
point.
Councilman Coyle. Continue, please.
Council President, I apologize. If you would also enforce against the noises and those interrupting behind
Yes,
as
sir,
well.
I will do
I
that.
appreciate that, Council President.
Mr. Shi, are you aware that Mr. DiStefano testified that this flyer he, quote, would not have agreed to send on behalf of his campaign? That he testified to that before this committee of the whole?
He can say whatever he wants to say. That's his word.
Are you aware that he said that?
I did not see his transcript.
I didn't ask that. I asked if you were aware that he said that.
I did not watch his video. I did not
Again, I
watch,
didn't
I
ask
did
that.
not watch every part of his testimony.
Are you aware that he testified that you sent this letter, this flyer, before you, pre-marked as Exhibit B2, on behalf of the Unity team without his authorization?
I don't recall that.
So you're not aware, is that correct?
I don't remember.
You don't remember if you're aware?
I don't recall that I don't recall.
Mr.
Just
Malik Schmidt, he clearly said that he doesn't recall the flyer.
No, I didn't ask if he recalled the flyer. I asked if he knew that Mr. DiStefano testified here that you, Mr. Shi, sent this flyer without his authorization. Did you know that?
I did not know that. I didn't.
Did you know that?
I was not here for his testimony.
Did you know that Beth Maroney confirmed that she was quote-unquote dumbstruck and could not, quote, understand how you could put something this vile out in the public without consulting the team, unquote?
That's correct. I did not watch her testimony. I was not here.
I just asked if you knew that she had said that.
I did not watch the testimony. I did not see the transcript. I was not here. So the answer is no.
Thank you. Were you ever required to hire an attorney on behalf of the Unity team during that campaign?
Yes, towards the end,
And why was that?
because there was an intent of a lawsuit
What was,
filed.
and what did that lawsuit pertain to? What did that intent of a lawsuit pertain to?
The intent of the lawsuit was filed by the union president,
Who is that union president?
Jeff Bowden.
What was he, what was the purpose of that lawsuit that he was threatening? What did he allege?
I think it was defamation.
And do you know what that defamation was with regard to?
It was regard to certain flyer.
And that was made against you personally, is that correct?
It was against the Unity team.
Do you know which flyer was at the heart of that lawsuit?
I don't remember. Maybe this one, maybe something else. I don't know. But the contents of the flyer, Mr. DiStefano probably did not mention to you. The contents of the flyer that we have in question about was provided by Mr. DiStefano himself.
How do you know the contents of this flyer were provided by Mr. DiStefano?
Because he told us.
He told, so you do recall this flyer then, is that your testimony?
It's not this flyer. It's not this flyer.
So which flyer?
It's not this one. The one that was a lawsuit, I think. It's not this one.
Could you elaborate on what you mean by the contents of the flyer?
So the content of the thing was that Mr. DiStefano found out there was something about Mr. Bowden's brother has owed some money to the feds.
And that was in a flyer?
I think that was the lawsuit about. I don't specifically recall whatever that was. That was something about him.
There you go.
So, on the front of the flyer, there's a newspaper headline, "Hotel co-owned by Edison Teachers Union President caught not paying taxes, admits $668K tax evasion." Is that what you're referring to, or is it something different?
Correct.
That is what you're referring to?
Correct.
So we are talking about this flyer then?
The contents of that came from Mr. DiStefano, because that's what that he has been telling us.
Oh, I understand, but the lawsuit is about this flyer then that we're talking about?
Yeah.
Okay, thank you.
When was the last time you've seen this flyer?
When was the last time I saw this flyer? The last time I saw the flyer, that's during the campaign. That was, this was sent it out.
And having reviewed this flyer today and discussed its implication in a potential lawsuit against you, do you recall having seen this flyer during the course of your campaign?
Yeah, yeah, I've seen the flyer, yes, I've seen the flyer.
And do you know who designed the flyer specifically?
know.
Do you know who on your Unity team, there were 4 of you on the Unity team, is that correct?
Correct.
You said that you did not participate in the designing of the flyers, is that correct?
No,
Do you know who of the other 3 would have designed these 4 flyers for you?
I don't know. I can't answer that question.
And while you were threatened with a lawsuit for the design of your flyers, did you make any inquiry as to who designed your flyers?
There's a lot of issues going on at that time, so, that was the intent. That was the intent of a lawsuit. There were no lawsuit filed.
I understand. But when there was the threat of a lawsuit, did you make any inquiry as to who had designed the flyer that brought a potential lawsuit against your campaign?
Objection, Counselor. I believe this has been asked and answered.
I missed the answer, if he'd be so kind. I think the question before was if he made any inquiry, and the answer was that he couldn't recall. If that's his, do I have that correctly, Mr. Shi?
I don't remember whether I contact someone or not. I don't remember.
Okay. Would it surprise you that Beth Maroney testified that, quote, the only flyer the entire team was ever consulted on was that first flyer, unquote, and that, quote, every time she would ask a question regarding money, the answer was always the same. Don't worry about it. You don't worry about it. You have nothing to worry about it. I'm taking care of anything. Everything, excuse me.
Again, I was not. I have never. I was not at the meeting when she testified. I have not seen the transcript. That's whatever she said is whatever she said.
So you didn't know that she had said that until I just read it to you tonight?
She might have said something. I didn't. I was not here. I did not see the transcript. So she could have said whatever she wants to say.
I'm just asking if this is the first time you've heard that quote.
Yeah.
Okay. Does it surprise you that she didn't feel that the Unity team was a co-equal team of equals?
That's her own feeling.
Does it surprise you?
I don't know what's. I don't know how to answer that question. It was, to me, I treat every team member equally.
What was
My people might have different feelings, but
And your testimony was that your role in the campaign was essentially going door to door,
that's the job of a candidate, is to go door to door.
and you
Knock
had
on
no
doors.
other jobs beyond going door to door.
We talked to other volunteers, other people who helped the campaign, to discuss issues that we talked to voters during the campaign. That's what I stated in the statement. That's how we were able to achieve certain things. Those are things that we discussed and talked to the voters during the campaign.
Counselor, for clarity, are there specific examples of assignments that you're asking about here? Because maybe asking directly might be easier.
I think my question has been answered. Thank you, Counselor. With regard,
Council President, may I ask some questions?
definitely.
Yes, go ahead, Councilman.
Thank you, Counselor. And forgive me for being confused with the counselor's questions on all these different flyers. Tonight, I came here to find out about this flyer and the one and only flyer, which I hope we can stick to, because whether or not you were involved in previous flyers, made a flyer that had nothing to do with this flyer, or your team made a flyer, or Beth Maroney disagreed with the making of flyers going out on her behalf. I guess the first question I have is, for any disagreement of any of your other candidates that were on your team, did you ever receive a correspondence from Beth or anybody else that they disagreed with any flyers going out?
I don't recall it.
Okay. Are you aware of this flyer, obviously?
Yes, I'm aware of this flyer.
Did you make this flyer?
No,
Do you know of anybody else that may have been involved in making this flyer?
I do not want to speculate.
I'm concerned with one flyer. And we were investing money, taxpayer money, to find out the silver bullet of who may have designed this flyer on a computer, who has sent this to a printer to be printed, and someone, collectively with a few, I assume, put stamps on this flyer to put that out. Somewhere, someday, that's going to come together. So I'm concerned with these flyers and campaigns, and we do so many things during campaigns, and I think everybody knows there's a lot of moving parts in 45 days of a campaign, or 60 days. Back to this flyer. Are you aware of anybody that put stamps on this flyer?
No,
Are you aware of anybody who dropped this off at the post office?
no,
That's all I have. Thank you.
thank you.
Thank you.
Just to address Councilman Coyle's questions about why we're going down this road, we have this exhibit which we've had since the first one of these hearings, and we've noted the similarities between the design of the two flyers. And in the interest of being thorough, Councilman, that's why we're going down this road. We're trying to get to the bottom of this and pursue every lead we can.
Council President, I'm fine with their questions. I just would appreciate in any situation like this that we just get to the point. And I don't see us leading to the point. I just see this turning into a twisted match of words. And at the end of the day, we're going to find out that Mr. Shi did not get involved in designing his flyers. And we're only concerned with this flyer right here. So I'm just,
And I agree with that.
Let me finish, Counselor. There are many parallels in flyers that we dislike, and they come from many different campaigns. I'm just concerned with this one, and would be appreciated if you get faster to the point, is all I'm asking you, out of courtesy, because I don't think you're doing a good job representing the Township of Edison. That's all I'm asking for. Okay, just get to the point, find the silver bullet, and I'm fine with that.
Okay, Council
That's all I'm
President,
asking.
just,
Or tell me why
and-
you're asking all these.
out of
I think
respect,
I just did.
yeah, out of respect to my fellow colleague here, Councilman Coyle, do you not see a similarity between those two flyers?
I don't. This is the flyer I'm looking at right here.
Just to be clear, it's between Exhibits A and Exhibits B, which is in itself Exhibit C, is the two flyers up against themselves on the screen in front of the audience.
But what are you leading to, Counselor? Like, you're not leading to the silver bullet. Who made it? What computer is it on? Who put the stamps on it? That's what I need to know.
And that's what we're trying to find out.
And you're jockeying around, and I just want to get to the
And,
point.
and
That's all
we're
I'm asking. Be better at your job, as I'm asking. Just
Sorry, Councilman Coyle.
I'm not going to spend all night talking about every step of a campaign that has.
You're
that
free to
is not
leave
this
early
flyer.
after showing up late if you're
Counselor.
growing impatient.
Counselor,
Councilman
I
Coyle.
would hope you never get hired by this team
Councilman
again. It
Coyle.
wasn't my privilege to hire you to begin with.
Okay, Councilman Coyle. Thank you.
Council President, I'm just stating the facts, okay?
I understand, sir.
And
but
and
we're-
collectively,
It's conducting an
there
investigation.
are,
so
there are
it's not-
several
if-
conflicts
Sir, are you?
I'm confused with. But I
are
just
you-
at the end of the day, Council, and I'm sorry, Council President, I just want to finish. I want to get to the bottom of the silver bullet. That's all I'm asking. Get
Great.
closer to that, I'll be happy,
So
Councilors.
it's an investigation, and that's why questions are being asked. Thank you.
Council President,
Yes, sir.
I think we should move on at this point. I'm not sure what Councilman Coyle is talking about with conflicts, but I think we should get on to Mr. Shi's knowledge, if any, with regard to the racial flyer that was sent out in early November 2017. When did you first learn about that flyer, sir?
As I stated in my statement, I don't even recall, because it was 2 years ago.
Okay. So you don't recall when you first learned of it?
That was already addressed in his statement, Councilman.
I understand that. I'm just confirming for the record. Just, okay. Did you get it before the election?
I never got it.
You
I never received it.
You never received it?
No.
Okay. How did you first learn about it?
Again, I don't remember how I learned. There are a lot of postings on social medias, and there might be social media or someone text me. I don't remember.
Okay. But it was either on social media or somebody texted you a photograph?
Correct.
Okay. But you don't know whether it was before the election or after the election that you first became aware of it?
It was before the election, yeah.
Okay.
The election, yeah, before the election.
And once you learned of it, I'm not going to belabor the point, but you did have an opportunity to speak with law enforcement, and you chose not to for the reasons you stated in your opening statement, correct?
Correct.
Okay. And do you believe that the two exhibits that were previously up, do you believe there's any similarities between the two?
Besides the stamp that's round, I don't see a lot of similarities. Again, you know, this council is concentrating on the similarity of two stamps, but you never concentrate on the similarities of what I read about those things posted on the Facebook and the contents of this Make Edison Great Again.
Well, respectfully,
slide.
Mr. Shi, you just provided those to us this morning. So you didn't give us much time to appreciate those.
Oh, I-
Councilman, those
Although that-
posts are
although
not
you-
news to anyone on this committee.
Although you've had those for close to 2 years at this point.
No, I am pretty sure that a lot of people saw that. And I can guarantee you.
But
a
you've
lot
had
of the-
those for close to 2 years, correct?
I can guarantee you a lot of the councilmen who has seen it.
You
during
had
the
those.
campaign.
You had those for close to 2 years at this point, correct?
Councilman asked and answered. Let's move on.
I think you testified earlier that, in fact, you saved those pictures along the way. When you saw them, you would take a snapshot or something and save them along the way. Is that correct?
Because I was very upset about those, so I want to keep them.
Okay. But again, you never showed those to law enforcement, correct?
Objection, asked and answered.
Is he going to answer the question or not? Your objection is noted. I appreciate your
He's
objection.
not going to answer.
Okay, so you're directing him not to answer the question?
That's correct.
Okay.
Council President, and I don't mean to interrupt Councilman Lombardi, but who designed the banner that was walked in the parade? Who designed that banner?
My client has been directed to not answer questions from 4 members of this committee.
Well, you know what's going to happen. They're going to ask you from over here.
I'll ask the stenographer to place in front of the witness what's been pre-marked as Exhibit J.
Can we find out who designed that banner?
Mr. Shi, do you recognize the banner that's featured in that photograph?
Yes,
Do you know who designed that banner?
this was designed by you asked who designed it. I don't know who designed it. I was not involved in any design of anything.
Do you know who these individuals are in the photograph?
Yes, I know.
Who are they?
That's me, Paul, and Raj.
You're marching behind this banner in a parade, is that correct?
Correct.
And the photograph is titled August 13th, 2017. Do you have any reason to dispute that that's the date in which that photograph was taken?
I don't remember what date it is, but it was one of the parade. That's probably the India Day parade. So whatever that parade happened is whatever that day is.
And that could have been August 13th, 2017.
That's probably somewhere in August, yes.
You marched behind that banner, obviously, as you in the photograph there.
Correct.
It says the Lanky Team for Edison Board of Education, is that correct?
Correct.
Were you on any Lanky team at that point?
I received a permission from Mayor Lanky to use the term Lanky team.
At or about that time in August 2017?
Correct.
You said you received that permission, is that correct?
Correct.
Did anyone else on your team receive that permission?
I don't know if Mayor spoke to other team members, but he spoke to me, and
So did you direct who came up with the term the Lanky Team for Edison Board of Education?
we are working together as one team. That's what the Lanky team is there.
So you did not direct the creation of this banner?
You asked me, did I design it? No, I did not.
And I'm asking now if you directed its creation, if you asked somebody to create
I
it for
don't
you.
remember.
Okay. Now, if Paul DiStefano testified that you made this banner, you would disagree with that. Is that your testimony?
I did not make the banner. I carried the banner. I did not design the banner.
Did you use this banner on more than one occasion, do you recall?
Yes.
And what occasions were those?
I think the next day, the next week of the Pakistani Day Parade, we use the same banner.
Yeah, this is a fairly large banner. I mean, as you know, running a campaign, these things are expensive. Is that right?
I don't know what you mean by expensive.
It costs a lot of money to get large things printed.
What is a lot of money?
Well, more than getting a leaflet or a piece of paper. They're expensive. I mean, how much would you estimate something like this costs?
I don't remember. Everything that's done, it's reported in my ELEC report.
Okay. Do you know where this was printed? The
Yes.
banner? Where?
This was printed by A to Z.
A to Z. Was that a printer you used?
It's a
Frequently?
It's a printer that they do the campaign literature.
Now, comparing Exhibit J, Exhibit B, and Exhibit A side by side, if you would, with the exhibits placed in front of you, Mr. Shi.
J.
Would you please put
J-
Exhibit C up on top? It would make it easier to see them all at once.
I unfortunately can only use one slide at a time on here in our PowerPoint.
So you say what? J and
The
what?
banner slide, Exhibit J, and then Exhibit C.
Uh-huh.
The point is, between these two flyers and the banner, do you notice any similarity as to the type font and the color scheme that's employed on these three banners, on these three exhibits?
I am not an expert on printing, so, I can't tell. And again, I'm also colorblind, so,
With color blindness, does that, which colors does that pertain to?
red and green,
Red and green.
yes.
So, I'm just curious in terms of the blue hue, is that an issue in determining that those are the same blue hue?
When I look at the blue, might be different from what you look at the blue.
Okay. But do you see similarities between this font and the color between the three different exhibits placed in front of you?
Again, I'm not an expert on printing, so I can't make any judgments on it.
I just asked in your general everyday opinion, do you notice similarities?
Again, I'm not expert on printing, so I can't make any judgments on that.
I understand. I'm just asking, it seems like these are unique colors and fonts placed alongside one another, and to the extent that that might indicate who would employ such unique color and font scenarios across the three and relating back to the flyer, does that give you any indication as to who may have designed the flyer?
I don't know who designed the flyer.
And seeing these different similarities across materials employed by the Unity team, that doesn't change your ability to determine maybe who would have designed the flyer at issue here.
Again, sir, I'm not the expert when it comes to printing technology, so I can't answer that question.
I know.
I
I'm
think
just
he's made his
asking-
point clear, Counsel.
Well, I didn't
Council
ask if he was
President-
an expert.
Council President, can we just get to the point?
He's asking the
mean,
question, and he let him answer, Councilman
Council
Coyle.
President, I just believe
I understand, but
that we
let him.
have
Yeah,
a million computers on the market at Edison that make all of these opportunities. I just wanted to get to the point.
I don't know that there are a million
Okay.
fonts. He's trying to get to the point, so
Okay,
we'll
there's a
allow him
million
to close it
computers
up.
in Edison, is what I'm saying.
But the thing that you know,
Get to the point.
you try to link those things, okay? But let's look at this. The one over here on the right-hand side, this thing has been out for a long time, since day one. Since day one, with H1, H3, H3, H5, H7. This one's been out for since day one. Anyone can copy this and do whatever they want to design with it. Again, you guys are concentrating on a step, on a wrong step. You never concentrate on anything that was posted on social media. I know you, the council members, you have seen this before during the campaign about all these things against the minority. Nobody said a single word about it.
Mr. Shi, did you say from what day one the flyers went out?
This one was very early during the campaign. This flyer was out. Whenever we got the column number, I don't know, whatever the column number came, that's very early during the campaign.
I understand. You're speaking to your flyer. Is that correct, Mr. Shi? Just for the avoidance, you said left and right, just for
Yes.
the avoidance of.
Yes.
And to the
Vote for the
councilman's
independent Edison team there.
And to the councilman's point, I'm merely asking, to the extent there are similarities between the font and the color scheme, we may disagree on that. Does that impact your recollection or ability to determine whether or not, if you have any idea, someone may be behind designing the flyer at issue here?
No.
No. Okay.
And just real quickly, who communicated with A to Z Printing on behalf of your campaign?
There, as I said before, there are a lot of volunteers involved in designing all these campaign literature, just like a lot of the council members said at the previous meeting when asked about the flyers during the primary. They have no knowledge who printed it, who designed them.
Okay, but you're positive that A to Z Printing printed the banner, the parade banner?
Correct.
And why are you positive about that particularly? Why does that stick out?
Because I went there, picked up.
You picked it up from there?
Yes.
All right, thank you.
Mr. Shi, there's been a lot of testimony, prior testimony, with regard to a meeting that took place at the Bagia household. Was one of your strategy meetings, meeting places at the Bagia household?
We have a lot of meetings all over the place around town. We have meetings in my house. We have meetings in the Lanky, Dio, Joshi, and Gomez headquarters. We have meetings in Panera Bread. We have
Have you
meetings.
had meetings at the Bagia household?
Yes, probably, yes.
Approximately how many during
I
that
don't remember.
2017
I don't remember.
election?
I don't even remember. We actually
More
had a
or
meeting.
less than 5?
I don't recall. I don't even remember how that meeting until Paul brought it up.
Okay. Well,
There
Shannon.
were so many, there were so
Shannon
many
Pang-
meetings.
Shannon Pang also remembered that meeting. Did you watch her testimony?
I did not watch your testimony. Yeah.
And do you recall discussing at a meeting, whether it be at the Bagia home or somewhere else, I think we have an exhibit for the People for Progress email that went out?
I'll ask the court reporter to place in front of the witness what's been pre-marked as Exhibit D.
Mr. Shi, what's been placed before you has been pre-marked for identification as Exhibit D. Do you recognize this document?
I vaguely recall, I vaguely remember this specific document, but the contents of this is something that we have discussed. This is a public information about, the salaries and the distribution of the budget for the school district.
And was Ms. Pang someone that volunteered for your campaign?
Yes, she was a volunteer, as a lot of the others, for the Unity Team campaign.
And did Ms. Pang assist in the creation of what's been marked for identification as Exhibit D?
I don't recall the specifics of this material, but the information that's here, those are public information.
Well, if you look at Exhibit D at the top, the email, this was an email sent from x114@yahoo.com, and in front of it is a name, and forgive me, my pronunciation of the first name is probably off, but the last name is Pang, is that correct?
Correct,
And is that Shannon Pang's email address?
correct,
Okay. And that was sent to Paul DiStefano?
yes.
Okay. Did you have any input in the creation of this document?
I don't remember whether, but the stuff that was discussed here is also a thing that's, we've been talking around the whole time around the campaign. People ask us what the salary is. People ask us what the benefits, the distribution of the school budget. People, a lot of people say the school has so much money, but 80% of the budget are
Was this
the salaries and stuff. So that's why we try to present the fact. That's what the facts, to the voters.
So I'm getting from your testimony, and correct me if I'm wrong, I don't want to put words in your mouth, but are you saying that the Unity team, with the help of some volunteers such as Shannon Pang, created this information, this document in terms of the
I
information?
would not say Shannon Penn created it, but that's, I
I
don't
didn't ask
remember.
specifically Shannon Pang, I said the Unity team with the assistance of Ms. Pang.
We have a lot of volunteers helping during the campaign. Whenever we have issues, when we knock on doors, we meet together, we discuss, those issues, and we put materials together for, to educate the people.
Was one of those materials that you put together shown as Exhibit D?
I don't remember the specifics.
So you don't know whether this was created by the Unity team with the assistance of one or more volunteers or not?
Well, if this is Shannon sent to Paul, then Shannon sent to Paul.
Okay. Now, I believe there's another exhibit. If we could put Exhibit E in front of Mr. Shi, please. You go back to Exhibit D just for the date. Okay, thank you. Mr. Shi, what's been placed before you is Exhibit E. Would you agree that Exhibit E is substantially similar to Exhibit D?
There are some similarities, but there are also a lot of differences.
Would you agree that it's the same material or the same information?
Councilman, respectfully, would you point to a specific piece of information? Maybe that might be easier.
Well, it's the same depiction of the people at the table, correct? Mr. Shi?
Well, the numbers here, I'm looking at this chart. The information is similar, but it's how it's presented is different. So
It's essentially getting across the same or similar information,
the
correct?
cartoons are the same.
But its intent is to get it across the same information, Exhibits D and E, correct?
Objection, speculation as to intent.
Well, I'm asking if that's the
I
case.
don't know about this one, okay? This one was, because this is from People for Progress, sent it out. I don't know about the intent of that one, but the intent of this one, which is Exhibit D, the intent of that is to educate the voters. That's, those are the things that those receive the feedback during the campaign.
Council President?
Yes, sir.
A lot of people do work on campaigns. There's a lot of people involved. But when Mr. Shi talks about the Unity team, if he had to mention 4 or 5 key essential people of that team, who would they be?
My client has been advised
We
to
know
not
that.
answer
We know that.
questions
He's
from
not
4
answering.
members of the
question
committee.
is being
I
followed
know
through
that.
the attorney.
Mr. Shi, would you be able to identify who the essential people were on the Unity team?
The essential people on the Unity team are the team members, me, Paul DiStefano, Beth, and Fel.
Were there any other individuals who worked on behalf of the Unity team during the 2017 election?
As I said, there are a lot of volunteers involved in the with the campaign. There are a lot of people. I don't have a list of everybody. There 2 years ago, I don't remember their names. People get involved. There are all kinds of people, parents.
That's understandable. That's understandable. There are a lot of people on a campaign. My question was the key people. Now, we also heard that there were lots of meetings in lots of places. Were there times where other members of that core that was just described, those 4 people, 5 people, were there times when they were not all present at a meeting?
Were there times when those 4 people were not, those 4 core people you described were not present at a Unity team meeting, Mr. Shi?
Again, this is 2 years ago. There's so many meetings. If you talk about specific ones, I might be able to help you. But again, this is 2 years ago. This is a very broad question.
So, well, here's a question, and that is, those people were at these meetings, or should have been at this meetings, should have been at the meetings. Can you remember any time where somebody wasn't at the meeting? I think it was just said you couldn't recall. Was there ever a time where you were not at a meeting when the others were?
My client has been advised to not answer questions from 4 members of the committee.
Mr. Shi, was there ever a BOE Unity team meeting held that you were not present for?
If I'm not there, I don't know.
I'm not sure.
Just to
that's
clarify the
case.
question, Counsel, you're talking about scheduled board meetings, is that right?
No, I mean, Mr. Shi, it was your testimony, I believe, that the Unity team was the Unity team because these decisions were made in unity. Is that correct?
A lot of decisions, yes.
Were any decisions not made with Unity, with all 4 individuals coming to arrive at a particular decision?
I can't recall. I don't remember.
And to the councilman's question before, was there a Unity team meeting, a formal Unity team meeting held in which you were not present that you know about?
First, if I'm not there, I don't know what meetings. People have different meetings. The Unity team members, they have meetings with different people, their supporters, if I'm not there, I don't know.
Mr. Shi,
Mr. Shi,
Yes,
do you know who People for Progress is?
no,
Do you know who Andrew Morales is?
no.
Did Sharik Ahmad work on the Unity Team campaign with you?
What I mean by work, he's a friend that that's work on the Lanky, Deal, Gomez, and Joshi team for the Democratic ticket.
My question is whether he worked with the Unity Team in any way.
What I mean by working with it, we use the office. That's the Democratic campaign
Was he
headquarters.
one of the volunteers that assisted in your campaign?
I don't remember. There were a lot of volunteers. Some of them I don't even know them.
Did you have any conversations with Mr. Ahmad about your testimony here tonight?
I asked him whether he was coming to the meeting or not. That's pretty much it.
Did you ever ask Mr. Ahmad to purchase stamps on behalf of the Unity Team?
No.
Mr. Shi, is there any reason that your fingerprints would be on any one of the racial flyers?
There should be no reason.
At any time in your lifetime, have you ever been fingerprinted?
Yes. A lot of times. Because all the board members, when they get elected, they need to be fingerprinted and get background checked. And all the people who are immigrants to this country, who get naturalized, they got printed.
Okay, great. That's all the questions I
Well-
think I have.
Well, I think what I heard was, there would be no reason at all, because the post office had hundreds of these that they did not deliver. And if I understood what Mr. Shi just testified to, is that there's no reason at all why his fingerprint would be on any of those. Is that correct?
Mr. Shi, was it your testimony that there's no reason your fingerprint would be on any of the flyers at issue?
Already stated.
So yes.
Already stated.
Already
Take
asked,
that as-
already answered.
Well,
Mr. Joshi?
we sent several out for analysis. We have several fingerprints. I think the next question was, will you submit your fingerprints for examination in the attempt to not have you as somebody who might be implicated in this?
My client has been advised to not answer questions from 4 members of this committee.
One of the,
Just so I understand it, we've sent these out for analysis. We have fingerprints. My question is to Mr. Sheehan, to go through the attorney, would he submit his own fingerprints so he could be eliminated, perhaps, with any involvement of the racist flyer?
Mr. Shi, would you submit your fingerprints to this committee in an attempt to eliminate yourself from the consideration in the role of the 2017 racist flyers?
If a request could be put in writing, we would take it under advisement.
Is that a consideration that you would consider, or is that something that you would
If something
rule
is
out?
put in writing, it will be taken under advisement.
So you can't answer at this time, is that?
That is
I'm
correct.
asking Mr. Shi, I'm not asking counsel.
I'm instructing him not to answer. If you
Fair
put it in
enough.
writing, we could address it then.
I'm going to go back to what I said early in the meeting. I don't get it. I just don't get it. Because if Mr. Shi states that there's no way in the world his fingerprint would be on a postcard or a card in the post office, then why wouldn't you submit your fingerprints so we clear that up? I'll submit mine. Mr. Shi, will you take a polygraph?
My client's been advised to not take questions from 4 members of the committee.
Mr. Shi, would you be willing to submit to a polygraph test?
If you put the request in writing, we'll review it and take it into advisement. My client's been instructed to not answer that question.
Again, Counselor, that was directed at your client, but I'm just in the interest of time, I'll take it you're directing him not to answer.
Correct.
So I just want to, I guess, bring the public, as well as Mr. Shi and everyone else on the council, aware of what's going on. Part of the reason, I mean, this committee of the whole, as you stated, gives us plenty of powers, which have been very useful thus far. However, it does take time. I've been in direct contact with the Federal Postal Inspection Agency, and I've gone to their office multiple times. They have given me evidence right here, as you can see, with the caution and all that. It says, this is the evidence, but. So they gave us a total of 20 the first time around. And actually, I should say we were working on it together, literally working on it together. So we took the 20, we submitted them for evidence, and it went through, apart from visual examination, it went through alternate light source examination. It was submitted to a forensic laboratory. It was used, the chemical reagents that were used for processing this were 1 and 2, or I guess it's called number 1 and number 2 indonidone reagent. There was friction ridge detail that was found. In total, we had 137 postcards that were submitted. And out of that 137, more than, just shy of about 50 postcards came back with fingerprints. To our counsel, would you like, can you show the sheet? So this is, they ran the images. What we noticed was, and I'm working on this with the federal inspectors, the prints were found on both the edges of the document with Mr. Deal, if you could, Bob Deal, if you could hold that up real quick. So one of the things that's been very useful during this whole process was that Mr. Comer explained to us that the edges were cut off. They were not cut off by a printer, but they were actually cut off manually. And that gave us reason to believe that if someone's cutting it manually, they're probably holding the fingers on the edge while cutting it. That's exactly where we found fingerprints. Now you should know that I just got this back September 30th. So I just got this back a couple days ago. The first one that was submitted, the first fingerprint that was submitted, it was not rejected in the APHIS system, which means that the pool of people, so again, for timeline, the first 20 that we got, the first 20 cards had a lot of partial prints along with one solid print that was submitted to APHIS. It was not rejected, which means that it just had the pool of people was too large. We then submitted another 117, making the total 137, of which we've gotten countless prints back. And like I said, that came back to us on September 30th. It's been submitted. So we're at a point where we're closing in. I know we've obviously taken quite some time. This came in September 30th. I just want to know at this point if anyone is willing to, even if the people that have previously testified, not that I'm saying that they're guilty or not, I just don't know if anyone would be voluntarily willing to help this process out, clear their names. I'd gladly be able to do that because they did make it clear that we can compare, we can actually compare prints in-house pretty quickly. But other than that, I was told that it's an estimate of about a couple weeks before the prints come back. And that's the biggest update that I can give you for tonight.
Okay, thank you, Councilman. With that couple of weeks out, a question I have, this is the second witness that we've had when asked if they would submit fingerprints, whose attorney would say, we'll take that under advisement and get back to you. That was months ago. And my question is to the counselor, if we give you a written request tomorrow, when do you think you might be able to give us a response?
I'll think about it when I get the request.
Thank you, sir. Thank you. At this time, I'm going to move for an adjournment. Okay?
Second.
I'm sorry, Council President.
Motion to reconvene stands. We will notify you at the next meeting and provide any updates at that point. The meeting remains open.
Thank you.
Thank you.